All right, we are here after a crazy week 15. Chad's stuck in Costa Rica or Dominican Republic or wherever he's at. We were talking to him earlier today. He's safe and sound, but he got a couple flight delays, so he's not joining us. So uh, we decided to bring Josh back because Josh had a big weekend. But before we let him talk, because he did way too much talking while we were getting ready to come on here, I'm going to let Kalen go first. Because, Kalen, how are we feeling right now? The Devils are still doing their, they're still the best team in the division. They're doing their thing. I don't know if football is still something that you're a fan of, but how are you feeling right now?
Josh, I don't know if you have been paying attention to hockey at all right now, but the
course I
Devils have currently lost 5 in a row, and it's been a rough 4 weeks. So that's a month of football for Kalen over here. So if it wasn't for the Celtics being the number 2 team in the NBA, I don't know what I'd be doing right now, boys. I'd be losing my mind. This was a tough weekend, man. I kind of walked into it on Thursday saying that it was going to be tough, and I expected a loss. But then, of course, it becomes a nail biter, and you get invested. Like that's how it happens, right? And unfortunately, they weren't able to pull it out. So, yeah, that's how my weekend was. Shane, tell me how your weekend was. It's just really funny that after the ass kicking that Tom Brady took, Chad conveniently is away this day after all the ass kickings that the Steelers take. You conveniently are either sick or away. I make it to every ass kicking Monday. What's going on?
Well, you work from home.
Stop
Uh,
it.
I think that's a big point of it. Yeah, I guess the Steelers have had kind of a tough year, but hey, look, we won this week, 6-8, taking down Carolina, and we're gonna have lots of time to talk about that because I think we're starting to see what the Steelers brand of football is starting to look like again. But yeah, I do kind of think that Chad's had a couple of rough days of travel there, so I don't think that I'm not even 100% convinced that he knows what happened yesterday, as far as what happened to Tom and the boys. But Josh, talk to us about the Lions. You can get us kicked off with the Lions here. I do have a Monday Night Football best bet to get to. We'll get it to about 10-15 minutes. But give us a little bit of Lions talking, a little bit of hope before we crush your dreams.
I'm going to give you the Dan Campbell will change your. That's three straight wins for the Detroit Lions. It's starting to look good.
Which is a big deal, I guess, right?
Very big deal. We're now 7-7. Our chances from the playoffs before that game were set at 29%. We now have a 42% chance to get in. Yeah, it looks like we're going to be playing playoff football the next 3 games before we even have a chance to make the playoff. But with our schedule, anything's possible. Obviously, we talked about it before coming on. The Green Bay game will be almost the biggest game if they can win these next 2 between Carolina and Chicago, which are definitely winnable games. The team looks good, though, so happy to see the Lions doing their thing.
So this boy has been beaten for so many years that he doesn't even really know how to hype the team really well. 6 of the last 7, Josh, not just the last 3 in a row, but 6 of the last 7, and 5 of the last 7 against playoff caliber teams or teams that are right on the cusp, like the Jets, for example, right? So, like, this is I came onto the show telling you I'm going to beat the shit out of the Lions, and eventually I'm going to when it comes time to. But this team has just been awesome to watch. Like, from the beginning of the season, I was hyping their offense. I thought they were fun on offense to watch, even though I really don't like Jared Goff still. But the defense has still just progressively kind of gotten better, starting to take kneecaps out like Dan Campbell said they were going to, and they're just starting to stack these bricks. Like, the success that you see on the field first quarter through fourth quarter, like, it's not just, they had one good quarter and it was the comeback quarter kind of thing, right? They really are starting to put together a full game from beginning to end. So good on them. But, you're still looking up at the big brother there in Minnesota, right?
I'm not sure if you guys saw the stat. And off your point of the defense, 13 straight games with a turnover is now the most in the NFL as of right now. It's something we were not able to do in the past seasons. Getting an interception or a fumble was just unheard of. So that's really helped. And then the sacks that we've been able to get, that record that I talked about last week where we were tied for the lead in sacks, that got beat yesterday. James Houston had another sack out of Jackson State. Shout out our boy Lane that played with James Houston. And then, Aiden Hutchinson stopping the run this week was huge against, honestly, a team that I wouldn't say they have a star running back right now after losing Breece Hall. James Robinson's not playing. being able to stop the run against them made them just be able to throw the ball, which they did throw it decently. Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore had a great game. So just some things we got to shore up in the back end, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like we're not ready to throw a parade yet, right? They beat Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson got benched for like a third string quarterback. That the only reason Zach Wilson's even playing is because somebody on the Buffalo Bills jumped up and gave him a 2-foot stomp on the ribs, and he's got shattered ribs. I will take one thing back, and I'm going to say Dan Campbell will be your head coach next year. Which is also an insult because that means Dan Campbell's also going to be your head coach next year. So I'm not sure which way you want to take that. I can't imagine that you think that, I don't know. The team is believing in him. That's fine.
Yeah.
There is a chance, like he's coming back as a head coach. I'm going to say it's very unlikely that Jared Goff's your starting quarterback.
I think Goff will be back. They really like him. The organization really likes him.
Oh, I didn't say he's not going to be back. I just said he's not going to be your starting quarterback.
I think he will be. The organization likes him. The only way he's not is if they bring in a guy to compete with him. I don't think it would be through the draft unless it's a later round pick, or it could be a guy like a Baker Mayfield or somebody like that. They just want to compete with Goff and have a solid backup. That would surprise me, but I think he'll be back. What I wanted to ask you guys is something I was just thinking about. Our OC has done an amazing job play calling this year. That play call that he made on the 4th and inches yesterday was one of the most gutsy calls I've seen the Lions make. Turned out amazing for us. But do you see, with the amount of points he scored this year and the offense that he's ran, him being back with the Lions? Because I think that's a very instrumental part to what the Lions have been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that they're performing at a level that like coaches are going to start to get plucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be some coaching jobs that open up.
Well,
Probably three or four, right?
This entire coach base is like former players, right? A
Yeah.
lot of them took this job because it was an opportunity for them to finally get something on the resume here besides just being a player and kind of being more involved. But, you know, like there's some, I know you kind of ragged on Zach Wilson there a few minutes ago. Like, I do have to give some kudos there a little bit in the sense that this is a team that when Zach Wilson was in the game, when he played the prior weeks, they heavily relied on the run, right? And they can't do that now. And the Lions shut that down. I mean, they had one guy, Knight, 13 carries for 23 yards was their top rusher. So they really forced to put it in Zach Wilson's hands. And I mean, they have the weapons, minus Corey Davis wasn't playing in that game, but they have the weapons that they've surrounded him with to be successful. But it was nice to see him go out there and throw, 300 yards on a decent Detroit Lions defense. But where I think you guys really kind of tip the scale here, where other teams don't have that, is you guys have been in such friggin' close games over the last 3 years. Like, it's not just since Dan Campbell's been there. You guys have been a nail biter, one score, maybe 10-point games for the last 3 years. So it's at some point, the scale has got to tip, and the winds have started to go the other way, and they've been doing that for you guys. This is an example, a team that is trying to get to the playoffs, that are right on the verge themselves, and the Jets that have a really good defense themselves. And the Lions were able to, take the reins and get that win. So this is something, again, I think that when it comes playoff time, you guys don't have the experience. But when you do get some players with some playoff experience and still carry some of those guys that have been in these close games, I mean, the Lions are going to be a tough team to watch out for in a division that is getting weaker. I know that the Vikings have a great record, but this is still a team that's going to be really handcuffed against the cap over the next couple of years. And you've got the Bears and the Packers. I don't know which way they're going any given week. So, this could be really big for you guys in the next coming years for sure.
Yeah, and something else so that you can grab your blankie and feel better at night, Josh. Something that happened over the weekend that's going to make it so that your DC is not going to get plucked and none of your coaches are going to get plucked is teams that have inexperienced player coaches do not have the best resume at the moment. And I know it'll put a smile on Kalen's face to watch the Indianapolis Colts blow a 33-point lead to the Vikings. One of the more exciting games that I've seen all year. And, of course, I mean, everyone was rooting for the Vikings except for probably Josh. But I don't know, man. Could you get your head coach fired twice in a season? Like, could Jeff Saturday get fired?
Well, I mean, I think that, I talked about I called him a bootlicker before. That's still what I view this guy as. It doesn't matter what happens at the end of the season. This guy is somehow, some way going to be involved in the team, whether it be back in the administration like he was prior, or in some form of scouting or whatever it may be. But like Jeff Saturday is working his way up to not be a coach, but to be that John Elway type person, right? He's going to be a GM or an AGM of some kind. But you mentioned like, how does it put a smile on my face? You're damn right it does. You absolutely. Did you see the Colts blow a lead like that? You know why it extra puts a smile on my face? Because prior to that, the biggest comeback win was actually the Houston Oilers losing. So it's nice to see that record finally falling off of the Tennessee Titans franchise. With the Houston Oilers way back in the day, not necessarily Tennessee Titans, but they're still part of our history. But finally, the Colts take it from us, right? So it's nice to see that happen. Poor Matty Twice. They're not calling him Matty Ice anymore. They're calling him Matty Twice, right? So This is awesome. I mean, poor. Is he a Hall of Famer? This is another big, hit in the armor of Matt Ryan over his career. Great, you can throw a bunch of yards. You had one of the most historical NFL wide receivers of all time in Julio Jones before his hamstring went down, right? You also had Roddy White. You had Tony Gonzalez. Like, I don't know, man. I never really thought this guy was a Hall of Famer just based on longevity and the way that he threw they threw the offense with him there. This, though, is really going to hurt him. So this, man, Colts suck. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, for Matt Ryan to become a Hall of Famer, he would have had to take the Colts to a Super Bowl and to win it. I know that it's supposed like winning Super Bowls isn't supposed to matter. Statistics do kind of outweigh winning because not everyone gets a chance. But I mean, if you look at statistics, like this guy's not Dan Marino, so you can't put him in, and he hasn't done anything outside of his MVP season, in my opinion, to be at any point considered for the Hall of Fame. But yeah, I mean, this shows the disarray that the Colts are in. They're in a really, really bad spot. I would imagine that Chris Ballard's done at the end of this year too, right? And this is going to be a complete blow-up situation where they might have to eat some of this cap just to kind of dig out of some of these contracts that they're in. And it's going to be a rebuilding situation. Like, this isn't 2 years, I don't think. I think this is like 5 years in the making.
The problem is too now their star running back Jonathan Taylor. He can't just seem to stay healthy, and when you got a guy like that you're really putting a lot of your faith into, and he can't stay healthy, you're in some deep trouble. So they're really gonna have to figure out what they want to do there, but they're definitely just gonna have to rock the boat, switch things up. I don't see some of the guys back moving forward. Like, do you trade like a guy like Michael Pittman? Do you keep him? Who knows, right?
Well, so here's the thing. So I wrote down 6 teams just before we came on, and I want to know, of these 6 teams, and you can pick 2 if you want to talk about 2 different ones, but there's 6 teams out there that are just circling the toilet and continue to give their picks away. And one of these teams just won the Super Bowl last year, so maybe we're not going to be as harsh to them. But if you're looking at the Denver Broncos, the Colts, Houston, Cleveland, the Rams, and the Bears. I mean, of these teams, which fan base is in the worst shape? I mean, which one of these teams is going to take the longest to get their shit figured out? Because I only think the Bears. I mean, the Bears haven't been good forever, and they haven't been on the cusp of being good forever. But they gave up what's going to be probably the 34th overall pick for Chase Claypool, and since they did that, they're 0-7.
Like, he's only played a handful of games.
Exactly, and even when he's out there, he's not grasping whatever they want to consider the offense. Which, to me, I've watched Bears games. The only thing I see their offense is hut, field run to the right, field run to the left. So, I don't know, how you feel. Like, which of those fan bases are in the worst shape here?
I got to look at it and say Denver. I know they got 2 wide receivers that are locked up. I know they have some defenders that are pretty good. They had to trade away one of their defenders that they knew they weren't going to be able to lock up here in the offseason. But you have no first-round picks, and you have a very gun-happy GM there in Elway who is going to try and make a move here quick to try and patch things up. And we have seen many times in the NFL or in any big leagues that making big moves to try and make things better overnight isn't going to be the answer. I don't imagine that they're going to can their coach at the end of the year. As bad as the offense has been, they would have done it at this point. We're 15 weeks into the season. Like, this would have happened by now. And you mentioned earlier about Dan Campbell not getting canned. Like, I don't know if you saw that article that went out about how much money NFL teams have spent over the last few years and firing admins. $800 million. Like, I know this is something that we all kind of joke about, coaches double dipping, going back to college and stuff like that. Some are getting offsetting language and stuff, right? But this is, I think, now that it's out there and it's prevalent, like, this is a black eye to ownership. You guys spent $800 million on mistakes in your eyes, right? So I think that some of them are going to have to kind of hold back a little bit. A lot of them are trying to get new stadiums. I've talked about the Titans owner having to sell their own assets in order to be able to afford the stadium. They've been very, hamstrung themselves when they fired a couple coaches at the same time and haven't had the ability to dive into the free agency pool. So I think that Denver is going to be the one that's in the most problem. Where I think the team that you mentioned that it's going to be okay, this is going to hurt me so much to say this after just making fun of them. It's the Colts. You're in a division. They just fired a coach in a few weeks into the season here. The owner has put in his right-hand man to try and be the voice of reason among players that are there. He's been known to spend in the past. He knows that his time is limited with the roster that he has that isn't bad. They just had a lot of injuries. And their offensive line has played like garbage. An offensive line that should not be playing as bad as they are. So also in that same division, talking about the Titans, they just fired their GM. So he knows that he's got a team that he's up against that is wanting to make a push in their small window that they've got left. And then we all know that the Jaguars here in 3 years are going to be friggin' amazing. Like, they spend money every single offseason. You guys have gone up and down me with Trevor Lawrence being this God's gift to earth as far as quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm still not there yet. I still think he's a very good quarterback. But, I still think that because they spend so much money and they're a place that there's not a lot of tax, so players are willing to go there, that they're going to be good for a few years. So I really think Indy's going to make some moves here. They've shown that they've been willing to make moves as far as chasing aging quarterbacks. Now maybe you start chasing maybe aging receivers or receivers that can't get a deal done and kind of pair that up with Pittman, even though he's got a deal that's going to come due here really soon. But that might be their answer, right? Stop chasing the aging quarterback and chase a receiver that can't get signed like the Titans or the Eagles just had to do.
So I'm going to just play the other side and say that as a coach, that's a toxic job and you don't want it. The owner is way too involved in the situation. He is making a lot of it. And you know what? The fact that the players can come right to him, I'm sure that's great for the players and great for the owner. Horrible, horrible for the coaches. Ballard's on his way out. There is a whole bunch of money invested into guys that I'm not going to say don't deserve it, but you can't have that kind of money locked up without your quarterback position secured. None of us could tell you who's playing quarterback for the Colts next year. I mean, we could tell you it's not going to be Matt Ryan. It's probably not going to be Sam Ehlinger. So where do they go from there? Their defense, again, they spent a lot of money. Like, is Stephon Gilmore really that guy? I mean, look at how bad they keep getting torched in the pass game. And yeah, I don't even know what he is. He's not Shaq Leonard anymore now, right? What is he now? Is that what he goes by now?
Yeah, it's Shaq. He used to be Darius.
He used to be Darius, but now he goes by Shaq Leonard. That guy, I mean, he's been hit in the head a few times, and I'm not going to criticize him for that, but you've invested a lot of money into a guy that can't get back on the field. He's had concussions. He's had a couple other injuries going on. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in Indy right now. I'm going to say that and I said earlier, like, they're at least 5 years away from getting out of the mess that they're in right now. But I agree with you on the Broncos. I think giving away all those picks, but finally things are starting to catch up to the Rams here. Sorry to Liam, who's a Rams guy, but Stafford probably has played his last game in the NFL. If that happens, I would imagine Aaron Donald's not back. You're left holding the bag for Jalen Ramsey. Baker Mayfield's probably your quarterback next year. You don't have a single draft pick for the next 3 years. I think that they're toast, man. And they're going to suck, and they're going to give away top 10 picks to the Lions, who are just going to continue to draft receivers. So, yeah, I don't know. That's why I said we could make them a little bit of money with our friends at CoolBet. I don't know if you guys have put your wager in, but I got a couple good ones. I got a fantasy game actually hinging on some of this, so this is probably coming a little bit from my heart as well. But I like Aaron Jones to score 2 touchdowns tonight. Also to have over 85 receiving rushing yards combined, if you can pair that up in one of your bet builders. And the total score to be over 40. I think that this one's going to be a rough one. I think that the Packers are going to take this is going to look something like 31-10, maybe 36-10. Baker Mayfield's going to show a little bit of flashes, but he's also going to show flashes of the reason that this is the third team he's played on this year, and the Packers roll hard. So Aaron Jones, 2 touchdowns, over 86 yards receiving, passing combined, and the total score to be over 40. I think that would be a nice lock and a nice way to make some money, and maybe donate it to the Colts so you can help pay their salary cap a little bit. But there's other crazy stuff going on. We need to talk about the Ravens for a second before we get into the AFC East here, because and again, a little bit biased, I think that the Ravens are complete frauds. And the fact that they went into Cleveland and scored 3 points is a little bit embarrassing. The fact that they only allowed 13 points and still lost to Cleveland, again, embarrassing. Deshaun Watson is a shell of himself in Cleveland. I think that the Steelers should have taken them down 2 weeks ago if it wasn't for a couple of bad turnovers and a block kick. This one would have been just a laugher. I think that the Ravens are going into a similar vein as what they did last year, which, if anybody remembers last year, they lost their last 5 games of the season to get knocked out of playoff contention. That's where they're heading again. And if that happens again, is John Harbaugh the coach of the Ravens? I'm going to say yes, for not only the reason that Kalen said, all that money's tied up, but I think that the Ravens are trying to be like one of those consistent franchises that don't knee-jerk react. But how do you blow fourth quarter leads, and how do you blow division leads like this? Now, I'll let you guys go because maybe I'm too biased on this.
I'm actually happy to talk about the Ravens because I have the same opinion as you, Shane. They're completely overrated. I know you've probably watched them play quite a bit, so have I. The team doesn't – when they play bad teams, yeah, they win. But this year, those bad teams they've played, they've been barely able to get out of those games. And then they just look sloppy. Like, they just look sloppy. Even on defense, usually they have this high-flying defense that can do all these sorts of things. They've been given some trouble this year. And then on the offensive side of the ball, they're just so one-dimensional that once you get to play teams that are either decent or get to the playoffs, you can't. You can't play like that. You can't. You have to be able to air the ball out. And when your best receiver is a tight end who's Mark Andrews, you're in some trouble with – I know Rashad Bateman's hurt, but if you're not playing, then you're not helping the team. So that's all I have to really say about that situation. I do think Harbaugh's back just because – I'm not sure if it's a name thing or the money and those sorts of things, but I do think he's back. But I don't know where they go from here. I think they move on from Lamar Jackson completely and try to rebuild something there with some passing, some handoffs. Like, look what they had when they had Joe Flacco at QB. Not saying Joe Flacco's better QB than Lamar, but their offense and their team ran a lot more efficiently and made it a lot further than they do with Lamar Jackson.
Right, like you don't want to pay $40 million to a quarterback that just needs to hand it off. But Kalen's been smiling at me the whole time, so let's turn it over to him. He's got an idea.
Well, I just mean like Tyler Huntley played like garbage. Like this wasn't the same miracle Tyler Huntley that we saw, a couple of years ago or last year when people thought this might be some guy who can make some money in the open market when time comes, kind of thing. Like he hasn't been playing well. Now, mind you, guys, they just got J.K. Dobbins back, and the guy in back-to-back games in his first 2 games back broke 100 yards, 120 yards plus, back-to-back.
Yeah.
You have 120-yard J.K. Dobbins, and you throw Lamar Jackson in there. Both those are wins. Or, sorry, the win, they already won 2. But this is a win. They wouldn't have lost that game. I just think that when you talk about controlling the clock, Greg Roman's a shit offensive coordinator. He is. He can't – and him putting in what he did with Tyler Huntley, I think proves that because he doesn't – change the game plan at all in any way. These aren't the same players at all. And he's not able to manipulate the game. He can't go off script at all. But if you have a Lamar Jackson in the game and you get 120 yards out of J.K. Dobbins, most of the time that's going to be a win. Like, I just think that he's able to carry the team a little bit more than Tyler Huntley can. He had 88 yards 2 weeks ago, Huntley, in a complete game. Like, he threw 30 passes this time, only completed 18 of them for like 170 yards. I know that Lamar's only averaging like 190 yards a game, but he still adds like another 70 on the ground if he can or if he needs to.
I didn't hear you say that they're not frauds, so I'm gonna just continue to think that they are frauds. I think that the Bengals are not frauds. No, Joe Burrow just seems like nothing seems to phase the guy. He's just out there. No matter what's going on, no matter the situation, he doesn't mind squeezing in the ball. I like the way that he handled the Tom Brady comparison stuff in the press conference. You know, his name's Tom, my name's Joe, like whatever, just because we're like, you know, just because our structure and our playing style is the same doesn't mean we're the same guy. So I think that was cool. Do I think the Bengals are winning the Super Bowl? No, but
You said it, not me. I'm not saying it again. I'm not eating no hot wings again.
Yeah, look, they're better than I expected coming off of a Super Bowl hangover, and I think that one thing to watch out for with the Bengals is their defense is better this year than it was last year. They did just take a pretty big blow losing Sam Hubbard, which does appear to be season-ending. That's going to hurt probably more than like most people would notice, but you know, they got a pretty big measuring stick game in 2 weeks against the Bills. Be interesting to see how that one turns out. I think it's in Orchard Park too.
Yeah, it's in Cincinnati.
It is, okay.
So they get home for that one, yeah.
I think it's a Monday night game too, right?
Yeah, Monday night.
Do you think depending on the records though, what happens there? Like maybe I'm not saying they're not going to try, but do you put a backup QB in if both teams have their locked up divisions? Are they playing for a top seed? That'd be the most interesting scenario. Imagine Bengals.
Well, they'd be playing for some at that point, right? Like the Bills are 11-3, the Bengals are 10-4, so there's a good chance these guys are playing for something. Right?
Yeah, and Cincinnati can jump the Chiefs, right? Because Cincinnati beat the Chiefs. So I think they're going to be playing for something. This might be the spot where the Bills lock down the top seed, or it could be the spot where Joe Burrow takes it away from Josh Allen. I know everybody wants to call Josh Allen and Mahomes or Burrow and Mahomes the new Brady Manning. I don't know, man. I think that this Josh Allen Joe Burrow thing could be a pretty big rivalry too.
Well, I'm just looking at comparison of stats here, guys. So 325 of 510, 349 of 512. Those are their passing attempts and completions, right? 3857, 3885. Like they're 30 yards apart from each other in yardage. Touchdowns, 30, 31. Interceptions, 11 and 10. Like these guys are bang on with each other. The only thing, of course, that Josh Allen brings to the game is the extra 705 yards on the ground and 6 touchdowns. But as far as like if they're pocket quarterbacks, these guys are bang on. And you're right. This is probably like the Mahomes show is there only because he does these flick of the wrist type things. They're going to be there regardless of what teams he's playing. But this is the type of game that you're watching because of both quarterbacks. Like this is. You know, this is a great game or a great matchup for sure. But not just seeing that comparison, how close they are, that's crazy.
And yeah, I mean, both teams are built to win long term, and I think that's it's good for football. I mean, overall, as a Steelers fan, do I want to see the Bills and the Bengals slug it out for AFC Championship games? Not really. But is it good for ratings? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's nice to get new teams in there more often. I'm sure that people love to see the Mahomes Allen divisional game, the AFC Championship game that didn't involve Pittsburgh or New England, or I mean the Colts, I guess, for that matter. There was I think it was 20 consecutive seasons where the AFC team was represented by Brady, Manning, or Roethlisberger. So it's good to get a few new names out there. It's interesting to get 3 new changing of the guard quarterbacks out there. Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow. Those are all guys that I can watch and get excited about them being on primetime or in a playoff game. So I am comfortable with it. I am comfortable with my fandom. I am very, very happy that the Steelers have 6 wins.
You're really fortunate that the Steelers started to suck at this point in your life because 10 years ago, you would never praise another team if it wasn't a Steeler. Never would happen.
Hey, it's all about growth, right? Growth opportunities.
Growth and maturity, Shane. This is your growth and maturity right here. You're willing to cheer on the other squads, including the Bengals even. Holy shit.
Well, you know, I'm definitely not one to cheer on the Bengals, but having them on at least gives me somebody to cheer against. And, you know, even as, you know, like I was watching, I'm not going to pretend like I was cheering for the Bucs to beat the Bengals because I really don't care. I mean, the Steelers have already won the NFC South. I don't know if you guys know that. They have the most wins against AFC South teams this year. Did you guys know that? Yeah, the NFC. So the Steelers are 4-0 against the NFC South this year. So we would be the NFC South champion. Unfortunately, we play in the AFC North. But to watch him come back, to watch how poised they could be, pretty good team effort, and another thing we can all smile about is the demise of Tom Brady, right? Like,
you're smiling at that, really?
I am, yeah. Yeah, the demise of Tom Brady, and even better, the complete fall from grace of New England. And I know this is the third year of that, but how amazing was it? And just picture sitting in a living room with Rick right now. How amazing was that to watch Jacoby Myers throw that ball and it land right in Chandler Jones's arms?
Just
and him to
rock Mac Jones.
And have you ever, we've seen some pretty crazy finishes. Have you ever seen anything like that? Like, not even in Madden usually it finishes like that.
You know what I really don't understand, though, is that, now, all props to, Stevenson, Myers, Mac Jones, everybody saying that it's on them or whatever, and kind of just taking, their lumps, especially Myers. That's amazing that he was able to do that. But the guys, he says, oh, I thought I saw Mac Jones open. What in the Lord's name is Mac Jones going to do with that ball in his hands? He can't throw it forward. There's nobody behind him. What do you think, he's going to get 15 yards to be able to lateral it again? Absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand what the thought process there was with Myers. It's all on him, obviously. Well, Stevenson's kind of an idiot for lateraling in the first place, right? But you walk away from what Myers said, and you said, how many years have you played football? You have an immobile quarterback who's already got a bum knee, who's already 15 yards behind the nearest guy. What are they going to do for you?
Well, so I thought the biggest bonehead thing of Sunday was going to be Marcus Allen Marcus Allen of the Steelers going into the Carolina huddle during a TV timeout and getting a 15-yard penalty on 4th down, giving them an automatic first. I thought that was going to be the biggest bonehead thing, even though I really don't understand how that's a personal foul, whatever. If the ref calls it, the ref calls it. It is what it is. Until he throws that ball back. Not a bad throw. I mean, that did go quite a ways, but it landed directly in his arms. He almost hit him in stride. It's almost, I think Jacoby Myers might have had the Raiders money line. So maybe instead of the Calvin Ridley stuff, I think that they need to be checking his bank accounts too.
They do.
Yeah,
catch it right there, turn around, not even moving fast, say, get off me, and just run straight to the end zone. One of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. Honestly, I've seen some football games before too, where teams get the ball back with no timeouts left, 35 seconds. They take a knee and just go to overtime. And then there's 0 seconds on the clock. I'm like, he's just going to go down. Throws the ball backwards. I'm like, what are you doing? It's a tie game. What do you, I just don't know what goes through your mind, knowing, especially with Bill Belichick as the coach. He was livid. You could see him after the game. He just went straight in. That's not a Bill Belichick coach team thing to do. So that's why it was even more funny. But
well, now they're in position to even win the rest of your games. You're not in the playoffs. You could be 10-7 and not make the playoffs because of what happened in that game. It was well within your control. It's not like the Raiders are going to be in a tiebreaker situation, so losing that matters. But it matters because you lost to an AFC team like that. You lost to them on the road. Your team was out on the West Coast for 2 straight weeks, and that is the last thing that you needed was a long plane ride like that. And I agree. I don't know why they didn't just go out there and knee the ball out to begin with and just start again. But lots of wild stuff going on.
One thing though is I really don't understand. I know that Bill Belichick said that they didn't throw the Hail Mary because he didn't think that it could be done, kind of thing. How limiting is that? They've really just opened up a can of worms there for Mac Jones and what they view or what his team views as his arm strength ability versus what there are a lot of fans that have broken down other video film of him in college or even in his rookie year, a big throw that he made to somebody in stride. It was a 50-yard bomb down the field kind of thing. But that is really telling because in this league, there are 2 things that you have to be good at. be a mobile quarterback or have an incredibly strong arm, right? Accuracy only gets you so far because these DBs are jumping everything these days. But if you can't throw a 50-yard Hail Mary in the NFL level, like what are we doing here in your second year? I don't get it, right? Like I thought it was just that they had good name receivers that couldn't actually produce anything on the field. And maybe as the years built and they got these receivers through either free agency or the draft, they'd become better. But I don't know, man. That I thought it was going to be Mac Jones' team. That to me was rather telling. And with Mac Jones, he came out after and said, like, no, I disagree with that. I think that we could have definitely got the ball down there. Just give it a shot. Like, I don't know what else was there to lose besides running this draw and seeing what happens there.
Well, so I mean, maybe it's too early to call it, but like, is Mac Jones like, is he the NFL starting quarterback for the Patriots? And I mean, what this is his second year, I guess. So 3 years from now, is he the Patriots starting quarterback?
Maybe he's Indy's starting quarterback. We've talked with them lots.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe. But I mean,
they also have Bailey Zappi too, right? So, and they seem to like him. So it's tough to say. I don't think Mac Jones has done enough to be like, oh, this kid doesn't deserve a job. Like in yesterday's game, like he helped lead him back into that game along with Ramondre Stevenson. But I personally do think he's still there though. I just see it as he's the guy there.
I think he's starting to lose the fan base. When you lose the fan base, I mean, if the media turns against you and the fan base turns against you got to be pretty mentally strong. He's got the right coach to not make like a knee-jerk reaction for sure, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel the same way. Like last year, everything felt like it was like very Darling-esque. This year, they're going to miss the playoffs again. Fine. Like not like the playoffs in your second year is the end-all be-all, but next year, if he wins the camp job, which no reason to think he shouldn't right now, and they struggle, like how do they not move on? Like how do they pick up his fifth-year option when he's struggling and can't get them over the hump for what they need to be?
Well, because there's another person that's struggling on the team that needs to get fired before it's Mac Jones getting cut.
Matt Patricia?
It's Matt Patricia. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You talk about a darling season that he had there. That was with Josh McDaniels as his coach, or as offense coordinator. But this has been a horrendous offensive campaign this season by the Patriots. Like, again, they have good name receivers, that were good in the draft, that they were drafted in and have done anything in the NFL at all. And then they've got some good tight ends that they don't seem to utilize. You guys are paying these guys, like Jonnu Smith is the highest paid tight end in the NFL, and you don't utilize the guy at all. You have Stevens, who's a great running back who played incredibly well during that game yesterday, but the rest of the offense is flat. And for the last 5 weeks, how many times have we seen clips of Mac Jones cutting up or saying something loud and swearing coming off the field? And it's regarding the offense. It's a shitty offense, right? Like this guy needs to be gone. You talk about losing the fans. What they lost was 6 weeks ago. They lost the fans when it came to Matt Patricia, and it's only progressively gotten worse every single week. And it's unfortunate that halfback draw happened and he was right there and he's like clapping at the sidelines being like, what the fuck it is, just go down kind of thing. Like I feel his pain, but at the same time, man, like this isn't your position. This isn't your role. Get back to at least what you were doing on defense. But they don't even need, because their defense has actually been really good this year, unfortunately for him. But like, there's just not a spot for you there, man. Unfortunately, Belichick tried to make a spot for you. It didn't work. Like he's done. I think Mac Jones is going to be able to be okay there. He's never going to be, a game-changing quarterback, but I certainly think he'd be a game-managing quarterback in New England.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be, and I think we talked about that a little bit last week. I think you're either like Josh Allen type, or you're, I don't know, like Kirk Cousins on a best day.
Dak Prescott?
Yeah. I mean, you have to be one or the other. I mean, Dak Prescott obviously made a pretty big play. I'm definitely not willing to put that on him. It's not on him at all. Noah Brown, who I told everyone to pick up for fantasy last week, did score 2 touchdowns, but he kind of popped the ball up there. DB's in the right spot because exactly what he said. Everyone's jumping routes. The Jaguars seem to have a little bit of magic going on. How about that Bills and Miami game? Because I went into that thinking that the Bills were going to shit kick Miami. And the Bills were the victor. They came out with it. But a little bit more respect from my side that I can give to Miami for playing through the cold, playing through a tough time. Jalen Waddle, awesome. Tyreek Hill, I mean, he doesn't need my endorsement. But
he thought he had that game.
Yeah, it just seems like Miami is missing the third passing option, and they haven't decided that getting the ball to Gesicki is a good idea or Sherfield. Those guys pop up here and there, but I think, and don't quote me on this, but Gesicki has gone 3 consecutive games without even a target now. I don't know,
He did
man.
have a catch, but it was 1 for 5. He hasn't.
Okay.
He's no impact. I think he's only got about a total of 30 yards over the last 4 weeks. He's had absolutely zero impact. He can't run blocks, so he's pretty much useless in the offense they're trying to run there. When he comes on the field, I relate back to the Titans like you were back to the Steelers. When there's certain players on the field, it's absolutely obvious that the Titans are running the ball. When there's certain receivers that come on that I am more athletic than, we know we're running the ball. So when Gesicki comes onto the field, they pretty much know they're not running the ball. This is going to be a pass type play, or it's an RPO. Like, those are the only 2 options that you're looking at, right? So he didn't fit their offense. They tried to trade him in the beginning of the season, or their preseason. Sorry, they weren't able to find a dance partner. There was a lot of rumors coming up to the trade deadline that he may be gone at the trade deadline. Still weren't able to find anybody. He's just this wandering player, unfortunately, that just hasn't been able to find a home. 274 yards here in week 15. This was a player that was supposed to be like all the tight ends that got paid, he was going to get paid. You know what I mean? Like, this sub 300 yard campaign is not what you're looking for in a Mike Gesicki type player.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think that this is an indictment of either Tua's decision making or the way that they're calling the plays, because Gesicki can make the plays, and he's going to be on another team next year, and he's going to have 10 touchdowns on. Like, if this guy signs with the Titans tomorrow, he has 10 touchdowns next year.
Yeah, but Tua was with them last year, right? He threw him for 780 yards, almost 800 yards there last year. Like, so he was effective with Gesicki. This is just, unfortunately, also at the same time, just blatantly obvious. Just shows how much of a square and a hole or a circle peg that this team tried to make with this player. He's not going to fit your offense. It didn't matter if you're only going to get a 4th round pick for him. Is that worth the 300 yards that he's given you this season and the $9 million that you paid him? You know what I mean? Like, this is just really bad. I love the coach, but this is just, you got to be able to mold your offense a little bit better and get some of your players more involved, right?
Yeah, there's no way that they couldn't have brought in another tight end. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. Obviously, it might have something to do with the coach, but it also might have something to do with when they brought in Tyreek Hill there. He's getting a lot of targets. Then Waddle's obviously upped his targets this year. So it seems like almost Gesicki's targets has now gone to Tyreek Hill plus some. But it's very weird to think that a guy like that can't do what he's done in the past, especially a tight end who's the number 1 tight end on their team. To have that many yards is just absolutely nuts. And I personally hope he does get a shot somewhere else. So, like, really, and like Shane said, he'll probably go have 10 touchdowns somewhere else. There's got to be something off with him and Tua as well right now. So I do think next year, Shane, I'm going to quote you on this, and I think you're right about it, 10 touchdowns for him.
Yeah, and that 10 touchdowns can go in. I mean, he fits the line. He fits every friggin' offense in the league except for Miami's, apparently.
Well, okay, so I'm just looking at, like, his snap count, guys. This guy hasn't, like, 20% this past week, 39 the week before, 20% the week before. Like, all the weeks prior to that were sub 50. Like, this guy just isn't used. And again, it was just it's a shitty. You kept him for absolutely no reason. You could have got something for him, I feel. And again, you just try to put a square peg in a round hole for no reason.
Well, he'll find a new home next year, and he'll probably be better off for it because Josh and I are both going to bet the over on 10 touchdowns. Let's spend a couple of minutes on the NFC South here because it's one of those divisions we're coming down to the wire. I also got the AFC South on my mind too, and then we'll finish off with a little bit of talk on this Monday Night Football game that's coming up. But no matter what the Buccaneers do, they've tried to give this division away multiple times. Nobody else seems to want to win it. Carolina was in a good position. They went in and got just pounded on the ground by the Steelers. The Steelers defense, with the exception of like 2 splash plays, really knocked these guys out of contention. The big boys were able to sack Darnold. He stood in the pocket for as long as he could, but they just, I don't know, DJ Moore just couldn't get away. The run game, they couldn't get started. They're very one-dimensional, which I think the next coach is going to have to really work that out of this system. I don't think Carolina is as far away as some of these other bad teams, but, Carolina is not a playoff team this year. New Orleans looks like they're playing the best out of all the 4 teams. Desmond Ridder does not look like he should be in the NFL right now. And I mean, that's 1 week and one snapshot. I'm not going to bury him. I thought that he should have been one of those guys that should have been a first round pick. He does not look like a first round pick whatsoever.
You didn't want to make his bonehead scramble there that just ended the game?
Man, he made a lot of really, really stupid mistakes. The last play of the game was just the icing on the cake, right? He wasn't, I don't know. The way that this originally came out was it looked like they were just making the quarterback switch. It's actually that Mariota's hurt, and that's the only reason he's out there. He hasn't gotten enough reps. Maybe it's an unfair thing to put him into that kind of spot, but I mean, your rookie running back rushes for 150 yards, and you guys can't get anything done on offense. I don't get it.
Yeah. And he had a kid. Mariota had a kid too. Is Russell cooked?
Russ has been cooked.
Yeah. I mean, it's you definitely got to look at a whole of the system for sure. Like the offense there is just garbage. We talked about that earlier. They one of their signed receivers went down early in the season. They really haven't had the second one. Even their third string slot receiver has kind of been in and out throughout the season. The tight end that they thought was going to be good has had zero chemistry with Russell Wilson this season. And again, the offensive line has just not been up to par. You lost
the biggest fleece job of all time is that trade. Like, the amount of stuff that they gave up, it's still laughable to like even think about it.
Well, the problem for him is that he put himself in the position by making the contract what it was, right? Like, I get it. You're going to get paid kind of thing. But if you're trying to prove a point and how effective you are, maybe you don't go and sucker your team into giving you all the money and all the cap, and now they're hamstrung and can't do anything else. They're trading away, like they gave away Chubb for absolutely nothing, basically, right? Like, and that's because they're completely up against their backs against the wall at the cap, right? So now I want to come back though to the Bucks. I'm glad Chad's not here because this is a team that in the NFC they have the third worst point differential in the NFC. This is not a good defensive team. This is not a good quality team to watch. Like, offensively, they should have no problems. They should have no qualms at all. It's pretty obvious that their center was really important to them. That's been obvious throughout the entire season. They lost him really early on, right? Like, that's bad for them. But their defense has been absolute garbage. Like, their secondary that we thought was going to be out there, they were a hard-hitting defense the last year. They have not been hard-hitting this year. They've gotten walked over. Brady has been looking lost on the field. Again, their offense has not worked. Even when they've tried to plug in players in the past that they've been able to use, hasn't been there. Is Gronkowski that important to Tom Brady? I don't know. It seems like it might be. But again, the third worst point differential in the NFC in a conference that's not very good as it is, right? Pretty top heavy in a division that is very weak. I mean, reality is it's a pretty weak division. So are they going to get cooked? We talk about Russell being cooked. These guys are going to be a one and done, I think, when it comes playoff time, right, guys?
Yeah, well, and John Hudson comes in with the Herschel Walker comparison for the Russell Wilson trade. I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
If anything, I think there's other NFC teams that are, the wild card teams that are thinking, thank you very much, Tampa Bay, for the opportunity in the cold weather to go down in Tampa and play in the warm before we have to go back and play in the cold somewhere else, probably, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it looks like the Bucks are going to play the Cowboys. The Cowboys have kind of had a tough couple of weeks, one win, one loss. Again, I think that they ran into a pretty big buzzsaw in this Jaguars team that, again, can take a punch and not falter by it. And I think that's Doug Peterson's finally getting the locker room organized and getting the guys ready to play the way that he wants to play, which leads me to the AFC South. And when we're looking at the AFC South, both teams could win the next two games. Both teams could lose the next two games. And we're headed for that Week 18 matchup that you and I kind of talked about already, Kalen. Week 18, Titans-Jaguars, flexed into Sunday Night Football most likely.
How many times the AFC South get flexed into the Sunday night game? Winning in. It's in Tennessee, Houston, Jacksonville. Tennessee, Jacksonville. That's what it's been, right?
Well, and you know what? I think it would be, everybody's putting a lot of shade on Tennessee because Tennessee's kind of shit the bed over the last, 3 weeks, really. They just kind of lost their identity. But everyone's also these guys were the number one seed in the AFC last year. So I mean, get them in the playoffs, and they still might have the opportunity to be dangerous. But give us like why are the Titans so bad right now, and why can they just not go over the hump? Because it's not like they got blown out by the Chargers, and I think the Chargers are good. So I'm not willing to call that a bad loss.
Yeah. So,
but I do think the Titans are a bad team right now.
So, the last year we talked about, the Titans setting a record for most injured players and most starters played through in a season kind of thing. Titans are on their way to break that record again. So that's one of the big reasons you can't win when you got players that are injured. Our pass rushers, this was mentioned during the broadcast. Actually,
you guys just have more milk in the locker room so people's bones aren't so weak.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, just more. It's the hamstrings, man. I mean, we can keep their hamstrings. Julio ruined our team with this.
Just IVs. Just get some IVs in there.
That's right. Our defense has fallen apart in the last few weeks. Danico Autry has not played for 4 straight weeks. I mentioned in the past that is a huge problem for us when Danico doesn't play. Danico Autry, Bud Dupree, and Jeffrey Simmons have only been on the field for 16% of the snaps this entire year. Like, you can't have and Harold Landry was lost in the beginning of the season. So he didn't even see the field at all, right? That's hurting us, right? Why do I think that we're going to be okay? So the Chargers, you said, are a good team. I do think that they're a great team too. I came to this weekend thinking that it was going to be a loss, as I talked about, and then I got invested because the Titans weren't meant to be in that game. Why didn't I think they were going to be in that game? 11 starters of the team were injured. 5 of them were on defense. Like, this is not going to be. You're not going to be successful on defense when that's when working for you for the weeks prior to that, when you don't have anybody playing. And the players that have been playing, we're not talking about, it's their second string or their third string corner. We're talking undrafted free agents that are playing right now, which we've been famous for playing in the past anyway and being successful. But the worst part for us, though, is our left tackle. Like, Dennis Daly, I talked about has the most sacks in the NFL right now against him with 178 less pass attempts to number 2 because we don't pass the ball very often, right? He played the first quarter. Dylan Radins came in and played the second quarter, and he actually looked great, and then he hurt his knee. Another injury just happened. We lost 3 more starters that game throughout that game. Again, some of these guys weren't even actually starters prior to this week coming in, but that's how you game plan, and you lose those guys again, right? So I still think that, I don't care about the loss that we had to Jacksonville a couple weeks ago. I know that we have to go into Jacksonville now and get that win. I trust in Braves. The guy won the Coach of the Year for a reason, right? We were not meant to be in this Chargers game and a West Coast trip against a team that has, been playing well. And so I still trust. That's why I'm willing to believe in Braves. And we didn't have Treylon Burks. Like, if we get him, things are going to be different. It's a stud. Josh likes to talk about him. He's a stud.
Yeah.
And you're missing AJ Brown, which definitely doesn't help. Now, John Hudson asked a question. I'm just going to answer really quickly. Yes to all 3. That's if you didn't see his question in there.
What was the question, Shane?
It says, are the Titans worse than the Steelers, Lions, and Giants?
What the fuck? Okay, so the Steelers? Shane, come on now.
Steelers have been one of the hottest teams over the last 6 weeks.
Oh, so it's what have you done for me lately, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, football is all about momentum and continuity, and right now the Titans aren't playing with any continuity, and the fact that they can't get the run game starting should be a little bit concerning.
Derrick Henry's got over 100 yards, like 3 straight weeks. He's actually been playing.
Well, he has to. That's the only way the offense breaks 100 yards, but like he needs to get 200 yards with it, their belt, and he needs to score more. But I digress. Look, the Titans have a far better opportunity to make the playoffs than any of the other teams that were just mentioned, outside of the Giants probably. I think that the Giants are probably in the playoffs because of the win last night. Steelers aren't in the playoffs, and I told you the Lions definitely aren't in the playoffs either. So I think that it's gonna come down to a Week 18 matchup between the Titans and the Jaguars. That's awesome for football. That's awesome to watch. Right now, if they play each other, I think that the Jaguars would be favored by 7 points. That's
Shane, you're the betting guy. Now, I don't think that Vegas is rigged. I don't think they have any real influence here. But when the Titans played the Chiefs, they were like double-digit spread, right? And you were like, this hadn't happened for like ever. This is like a huge spread to happen like this. And then the Titans, with all those injuries, going on a trip to the Chargers were only 2.5 points. I don't understand that. Like, this is Vegas just knows something, right? And of course, the game was close, right? But
They're sucker lines, yeah.
The sucker lines, yeah.
They try and like get all the money onto the Chargers in that kind of spot because it inflates the line as it goes along. And then the Chargers are just historically a team that blows games that they're supposed to win. And the Titans historically win games that they're not supposed to win. So they're just trying to, like, it didn't work out for them that time, but hopefully that helps with a little bit of the insight towards it.
That's this next game for the Jags is against the Jets. That's going to be a fun matchup, eh? It's a nighttime game too, prime time.
Thursday Night Football, yeah.
Where is it?
I think it's in New York.
I think it is too, yeah.
It's New York.
Yeah,
it's New York.
For Jacksonville then, so you're going to be cheered for your buddy Zach Wilson this week then.
Yeah, Mike White's not going to be back. His ribs are all messed up, and yeah, I mean, Jaguar.
Did you see the report on that? He went to 10 different doctors to try and get himself cleared.
Yeah,
that's a football player, boys, and that's a football player knowing that he's playing for a starting job, right? How shitty do you feel as Zach Wilson? You're like, this guy. If he plays, I'm probably never going to be a starter here again, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they just lost to the Lions. I think that they're favored against the Jaguars, but I mean, I still think that the Jaguars are going to beat them even on the road. Road teams haven't fared well on Thursday Night Football, but that's just the feeling I have. I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts for Monday Night Football before we roll over to it. Packers-Rams should have been a premier game, but right now we're looking at, 6-8?
6-8.
I've never honestly seen I don't know the Super Bowl hangover, but this has got to be one of the ones where we're looking at. This is like the ugliest. Like, was it worth?
Oh, this is the worst. Yeah, they've already set the record for the most amount of losses coming out of a Super Bowl victory.
Just what a. And it's not even something that people like. People talk about the last year's Super Bowl winner. Like, there was no mention after week 2 about these guys being last year's Super Bowl winner. Nobody cared.
Yeah. Nobody cares. And LA got their win, and LA just started paying attention to USC. USC got knocked out of the college football playoff. That's over with, but it's a fun time. We got bowl season. This is our last time before Christmas. What's up?
I was going to say, because you mentioned college there, pretty big about Bo coming back to Oregon, right? Like, he's certainly going to run the Pac-12 now. There's no real competition, I feel, in the Pac-12 for next season for Oregon, and that's
well, put them in USC's still there.
Yeah, you know what, they are, but I really think that Bo is going to put this team over the top with how well he played last year. I know the coach is gone, and that's going to be a pretty significant loss for Oregon, but I still think that they can overtake USC and get themselves into that playoff dance.
Well, I mean, it's going to be like the conference is relevant again, and I think that's good for college football. But in 2 years, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are going to have a lot of work to do because they're losing a lot of firepower. So see how that one turns out. But yeah, I think this is the last time we're going to talk for the college football playoff. This is the last time before Christmas because we're not on again until January 2nd. So any final Christmas wishes? Obviously, Josh wants to wrap a playoff game.
Well, hopefully the Lions are in a playoff game in January. But I do want to wish everyone that's listening and going to listen to this Merry Christmas and then enjoy and see you in the new year.
Yeah,
I'm going to ditto what Josh said, except for if you're a Michigan fan or a fan of the Baltimore Ravens. In that case, whatever. I hope you get nothing for Christmas.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping that the Devils figure their shit out and that the Titans do as well, because like I said, it's been a long month of sports for me.
There we go. All right, well, this caps off our year. We'll have lots of little videos and stuff keeping you busy over the holiday season, but definitely from Going for Two, happy holidays, enjoy some time with the family. We will be back. Chad will be back with us in 2023, and we'll hit this thing home. And then before we